Welcome to today's Awesome Marriage Podcast. Today we have a special Father's Day episode. I'm sitting down with my good friend, Larry Hagner. Larry is the founder of the Dad Edge, which is all about helping guys level up as leaders, husbands, and dads. Whether it's strengthening your marriage, connecting with your kids, or just taking better care of yourself, Larry has a ton of wisdom to impart with us and share today. He's a husband, a dad, and author, and he hosts the Dad Edge podcast show, and I can't wait for you to hear this. Join me in welcoming Larry to the show. Well, Larry, it's great to welcome you to the Awesome Marriage Podcast today. It's been a while since we connected. Love what you do with the Dad's Edge, and special Father's Day episode today. So I couldn't think of anybody better to have on the podcast than you. Thanks for saying yes.
Man, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. This is super cool. It's great to be back, and what an honor to be featured on Father's Day. So thank you so much.
Oh, yeah. It's, you first person that came into my mind. So thank you for saying yes again. So let's kind of dig in. We're talking a little bit off air, the struggles that we see that dads have today. What do you think are the biggest challenge maybe that Christian fathers have? Today's culture is so different. And how do they stay grounded in biblical truth in the middle of all this? Because I was talking to you earlier about, guys that I see that have been in church and they're just struggling right now.
I mean, I think that there's a lot going on, obviously, in the world right now. There's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of things that have people's attention. I think people like to kind of point back to maybe the loudest noises, in the world a lot of times. And right now it's the political arena, 5 years ago it was COVID. That was the loudest noise. And,
Sure.
And, I think if we really look back in history, I think there's always been tremendous turmoil, craziness, and uncertainty in the political arena. I think back to, when Truman dropped the atomic bomb, like people probably thought the world was going to come to an end. Like, I can't even imagine if that happened today, like people would freak out. Or like when Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves, like that people became unhinged. Right. So, and some people, and then obviously there's a lot of people who loved it. So there's a great divide. There's always been a great divide. And I think social media has really added a lot of, layers to that now. And It's a lot of distractions, but I think it's really, really easy to answer your question, for men who are even faith-based, right, to be insanely distracted by what's going on in the arena of the world. And I think in order to combat that, it's the iron sharpens iron. It's being in action and in community with other like-minded men to keep us centered. No man does, I don't think, anything fantastic all by himself. And I'm talking like completely and totally in isolation. If we really look at success, because success does leave clues, living a fulfilling life leaves clues, and, frustration, avoiding frustration, overcoming frustration of knowing what the right next thing is to do leaves clues. And a lot of it has to do with who are we surrounding ourselves with? So for men who are struggling, even in the faith-based arena or Christian arena, or even in churches, man, I encourage you, really take a good look at who are you surrounding yourself with and how often. So even if you're going to church, on Sunday, but you don't even talk to any of these people, or you don't talk to any good friends and when I say good friends, I'm not talking like the guys that will tell you what you want to hear and, or just talk about the media or just talk about sports or whatever. I'm talking about deep, good conversations about your marriage and communication and connection with your kids and how you're doing, and those trusted advisors that we really need in our lives.
Yeah. And I think it's taken that step to do that, because I think most guys, it doesn't come easy for us to open up. And so finding some safe people, sometimes it's difficult for guys, but it's something I think we have to do. And because we can't, as you're talking through about culture, and, I think sometimes we think we like to just hide from it, and you can't hide anymore. It's just with social media and everything, it's going to be there. It's how do we weather the storm, what I hear you saying, and you can't do it by yourself. You just got to let other guys into your lives to do that.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
So with that, of just the challenge of what guys have living in the culture that we live in and all the stuff that we face every day, what about the role of father? Has that shifted culturally? Scripture's pretty clear about the responsibilities of fatherhood. What do you say to guys that are just kind of struggling with being a dad right now?
I think a lot of guys struggle with things that they, quite frankly, they're trying to navigate without learning anything.
Mm,
Any skill, I honestly think we would solve a lot of the problems when it comes to men wondering, like, what do I do next as a dad? This just happened. How do I handle it? Or I'd like to see this happen with a connection with my kid. I'm not exactly sure how to do that. Like these are the questions that guys are asking themselves that they don't say out loud. Like, how can I go create a better relationship with my wife where I can create closeness and connection and playfulness and even flirting with her and intimacy and all these great things. And, you know, all these things came, from the marriage perspective, all these things came really, really easy in the beginning of the relationship. It's when we
sure.
get, further down the road in the relationship that we realize that we need to keep doing certain things or learn different things. But I think the biggest gap in fatherhood and men feeling fantastic about their fatherhood journey is the gap in them in us realizing that in order for me to be really, really good at this, I need to learn how to be really, really good at it.
Hmm.
It's anything that we do well in life, we've learned the skill to do it. So you and I were kind of talking about pickleball right before this. And,
Yep.
if you don't learn the skills of how to play pickleball, you're probably not going to be the greatest player. Right. And not that that's a
Yeah.
goal for anybody, but let's just take that for example. You're probably not going to be the greatest player, and you playing games might be really, really frustrating to you. Like, so just like, God bless, I kind of like pickleball, but I would really like to know what the heck I'm doing so I can be better at it, so I can actually enjoy the
Right.
sport, and I think when it comes to fatherhood, that is the gap. Is like, I love what most guys will say. I love being a father. It means everything in the world for me.
Yeah.
Like this is the most important role and job that I could possibly have. I would die for my kids. And then my first question back to all of us, including me, is, yeah, but would you live for them?
Oh, that's so
Would
good.
you live for your kids? In other words, would you create a journey of learning and growth and curiosity to where, you would live these things out as a constant student to move the needle in your life of fulfillment when it comes to this creating this life that you want with your kids?
Yeah, and I mean, so many guys, and obviously you talk to so many men in this area of fatherhood. What percent would you say didn't have a good role model growing up?
I mean, if I was to theorize it, I would say 7 out of 10 men probably didn't have the best experience with their
Yeah,
dads.
yeah. And so that sets us back, I think, because I think that was our role model, even though our dad wasn't, if he wasn't that great, he was still our role model. And he was our textbook up until at some point in our life, we either choose to do something different or repeat some of the things that our dad did.
Mm.
And so how do we, what would be a first step there, I guess? Okay. You want to learn about being a father. Where do you go?
So I think, you know, I don't think the desire is actually the first step. I think every man has a desire. Well, I shouldn't say. I don't think
Yeah.
you can always use the term never or always. Whatever. I would say
Right.
most men have the desire.
Right. I
If
agree.
asked, right. However, I think it's the perspective of men thinking that, well, we have to figure it out on our own. Like that's just the way society is set up. Like I
Mhm.
just have to figure this out on my own. And by the way, when people come asking me like how my life is, like, hey man, like how you doing? Oh, I'm fine. How are the kids? Oh,
Absolutely.
they're good, man. We're really, really busy. We got this sport going on, that sport going on, but they're good, man. Tony's got straight A's, in school. And Amber, she's a B student as well. She's got cheer going. Everything's great. And I think it's that shallow conversation that doesn't really allow us to dig deep on what our current situation actually is and what we truly want. So I
Mm.
think it's really just completely and totally creating the perspective that, hey, if you don't know exactly how to do this dad thing, it's really okay. In fact, I applaud you for knowing that, hey, and even realizing if you don't know what to do, chances are you've never been taught.
Yeah.
So I think it's that perspective first of like, I think that's like oxygen in a man's lungs of like, oh, okay, yeah, there really hasn't been to date a whole lot of resources out there, maybe some books and that kind of thing, but there really hasn't been a ton of resources out there for men to really dive into. So that's what I tell men is like, hey, if you don't know what to do, hey, join the party. That's all of us, right? The I think where the stickiness happens is the ego, because the ego wants to protect us. So like a man
Mhm.
could be like, okay, well, yeah, I really don't know what I'm doing, so I guess I'll just continue to sort of figure it out on my own or kind of flounder, like, okay, great. That is where the problem is. Versus like, I think I'm going to go learn this. And this is where I think there's a combination of grace. Like, hey, if you don't know how to do fatherhood, that's really okay. In fact, chances are you have no clue how to do this because none of us have been taught how to do this. However, we are living now in I think one of the craziest times in human history. There's a lot of things going on. We have a window to the world with our phones. There's so much going on. There's so much connection. I put that in quotes, but there's also so much tremendous disconnection.
Mm-hmm.
But what I tell men is this, is if you don't know how to do fatherhood, that's probably not your fault. But what is your fault is if you don't do anything about it.
Yeah,
Like if
that's
you
so
just
good.
continue to, go down this path where we don't understand it. But I also understand that from a man's point of view, because reaching out for help is scary. So as soon as we raise our hand and say, look, I don't know what to do, like, and perhaps it's joining a program like yours or a program like mine, where we actually have created the blueprint and the skills for men to just go learn and then just go execute.
Yeah. Absolutely, and that I was gonna say that. I mean, if you need to, just start listening to Larry, start listening to the Dad's Edge podcast, take the master class. I mean, there are, like you said, there's so many opportunities for us that the generation before us didn't really have. I mean, they didn't have the access to everything that we have now, whether it's books or podcasts or being. But I think for me, it was I had to have a guy when my kids were little. I had to have another guy that I could be honest with and willing to be honest with me to talk about those things and to how do we do this? I remember one of my best friends back then when my son was playing soccer at probably 7 years old, and we were both on our boys, and one day we looked at this isn't working, and so I said, why don't I take your son and you take my son when we're at practice? It made all the difference in the world, in our kids and in us. And I think just having somebody that you can walk through those years with that wants, because I agree with you. I think the desire is there for almost all of us. We want to be good dads. We see the results of people we know that were good dads, and now their kids, their sons or daughters are in their 20s maybe, and you're thinking they did something right there. These kids love Jesus. They have a great work ethic. They care about their spouse. All those kind of things that we want. So I think we need that guy too, besides podcast and books and all the other opportunities we have. I still think we have to have that guy beside us. Do you agree?
I 100% agree. I think life is more enjoyable, even just from an enjoyment perspective. It's like, I think a lot of guys take this as like, well, I have to do this. Man, you should
Yeah.
want to do this. Like, because life is way more fulfilling when we're not doing it alone, not navigating it alone. One of my most favorite movies in the world is Shawshank Redemption.
Mm.
And I love that movie just because it's such an iconic film. The acting is so good. The story is so good. But it really also illustrates the power of community for men. So think about that movie for a second. You have, what was it? Shawshank jail was one of the most horrific places in
Yeah.
that time, right? That's the way they portray the story. You see how, the inmates are being chased by obviously the other prisoners to be raped. I mean, that's pretty normal, unfortunately, in prison settings. But even like the food, the food had maggots in it. Like I remember Tim Robbins, the very first meal he sat down, there's maggots in his food. And it's disgusting, right? And he's just like, holy cow, like I was a successful business owner who was married, and this is now
Yeah.
my life. And for a long time in that movie, for the very first part of it, Tim Robbins was isolating himself. He was completely all alone, right? And you could see how absolutely like horrifically depressed that guy was. Now, granted, that was a huge change, but the other men who became friends with him in the community were watching him, and they were like just seeing how he would operate, right? And they kind of like welcomed them into the tribe. But then after Tim Robbins starts to become good friends with Morgan Freeman and the other guys and Brooks and all those, you see his attitude completely change to where like he's invigorated again in some way, shape, or form. The community, the men, the conversations that were
Mm-hmm.
around him, and men pouring into him about how he could deal with being in prison, how he could also help them because he had unbelievable skills. He completely transformed that entire jail with just his knowledge, right? Putting men through school and testing them and getting their
Yeah.
GEDs and all that stuff. But the worst punishment in Shawshank was what? Do you remember?
I'm lost.
That's okay. It was the
Isolation?
hole.
The whole
The
isolation.
hole.
Yeah, the whole.
Isolation.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah,
the worst punishment in Shawshank was you act up, you go to the hole.
yeah.
And one of the most horrific parts in that movie is when Tim Robbins gets sent to the hole for 30 days. 30 days. Then after 30 days, he gets the sentence of another 30 days in there. And you just see the poor guy you see him come out of that 60-day isolation, and all of his buddies were watching him come out of that, and he looked like a completely indifferent, totally different human being. Like it was almost like he was completely and totally numb to the world. There
Mm.
was like nothing inside of him that was good anymore. And unfortunately, I think if we really, really focus in on that, I think that's a fraction of what men are carrying around, because we're not at Shawshank isolated, but in
No.
here and in here, and even physically, we have these very shallow relationships where that isolation that feeling is very real for men. And the last thing I'll say about this is, when you live in a time like we do, where social media connects us, but you feel insanely disconnected. It's almost like salt in the wound. It's like, wait a second, like I
Mm-hmm.
have all the resources in the world to be connected with people. Why do I feel so alone? So I think that's what men are dealing with as well.
Oh, I think that's so good. Gosh, I hadn't thought about Shawshank Redemption in a while, but what a
Yeah,
powerful
such a
movie!
good
And
movie.
that part of it there is just, yeah. It just you just see that with I got 2 or 3 guys come to my mind over the last 10 years I know that have really isolated themselves and what it has done to them. Uh, I think all 2, at least 2 of them have kind of come out of that now, but it's hard, and it's hard to watch somebody in that too, that just what they need, but they just won't, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
and we have to have that.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, we kind of talked earlier. We kind of skated over our wives and how we pursue them well before marriage and all that kind of stuff. But I think guys today, because obviously I see them in the marriage front a lot. How can a dad make his marriage a priority and not neglect his role as a dad? Because I think sometimes we put one or the other on the back burner a little bit, or we just focus on work or whatever else it is, and try to put some balance in something, but not doing a very good job of it.
I think this is just a theory, but yeah, I mean, you tell me if you think there's any truth to this. I think men, and I know I've done this in the past, is we look at these areas of our life like marriage and fatherhood, right?
Yeah.
Well, those are two separate worlds, right? Marriage is one thing, fatherhood's another. What if they're not?
Mm.
What if they overlap? What if actually being part of an amazing father is showing your kids, this is what it looks like to love a woman. This is
Yeah.
what it looks like to speak to your wife. This is what it looks like when you argue, to have conflict resolution with your mom. Like, we have such a like, yes, we're parents, but we're also husbands, and we have an opportunity to show our kids what it means to create an incredible marriage. I mean, Dr. Kim, I don't have to tell you, like, that most people grow up and they're like, I have no idea what to do. I've only known what I've seen. And
Right.
no, most of the time, what they see is not ideal. So they just repeat it, right? Or they don't want to repeat it, but they have no clue how to not repeat it. They have no
Mm-hmm.
idea how to break that pattern. So part of what we teach, over Dad Edge, is part of you being a good dad is also you showing your kids what a killer, amazing husband looks like. Like, so I'll let me break this down a little bit. So I carry the responsibility and the identity that I'm going to show my boys, this is how you love a woman.
Mm.
This is how you actually cultivate an incredible relationship. This is how you make your wife feel seen, feel heard, and feel safe, because those are her 3 needs, right? I'm also going to show you the dichotomy and the balance of, I'm going to be a servant leader, but I won't be disrespected either, right? And granted, as a man, I have to earn that respect. But I think a lot of guys,
Right.
again, will take, like, well, if I want to, this is what I don't want men to hear during this podcast. I don't want men to say, or to hear, hey, in order for me to be a good dad, part of this is being a good husband, which means happy wife, happy life. So I'll do whatever she wants and whatever she needs and whatever she says, and I'm the nice guy. Don't do that. Don't do that, because basically what you're now doing is you're showing your son or your daughter, This is how a nice guy goes about it, right? And I use that term very loosely because that's a term more by Robert Glover, Dr. Robert Glover, which a nice guy doesn't know exactly how to operate within a marriage. He just kind of allows whatever, but then builds resentment on top of it, and then doesn't know what to usually do about it, and then kind of crumbles as a man
At
a
some
bit.
point, yeah.
So I think it's really, really important to also show the dichotomy of like, I am a giving man. I'm a
Mm-hmm.
loving man. I'm a compassionate man. I'm also a powerful man. I operate with integrity. I earn my respect. I don't just get it, I earn it. But this is how I go earn it. Right. So I think it's really important. Like, I take on the responsibility of like, I need to show my sons, this is how you lead a marriage. This is how you love your wife. This is how you keep her safe. This is how she feels seen and heard. And the other thing too is like, I'm also going to show you boundaries in a relationship as well and ways of operating. And my wife, she takes on the responsibility of, I need to show these young men what it means to treat a man well, because all of these jokers that come knocking on our door in the teenage years, I need to show these young men what a good woman looks like, because I am not going to have a woman walk all over my sons. And I'm going to be the shining example of what it means to love, honor, respect my husband. So that's her perspective of
Yeah.
this as well.
Yeah, and I love that, because I think that's what our wives want. They want to be that teammate with us. Um, and I think we just, as guys, I love everything you said there, because I tell guys all the time how important it is that if you want your kids to have a good marriage someday, they've got to see it at home, and they've got to see you. Sometimes people think, well, what if the kids think I love their mom more than I love them? And I go, it's okay. It's a different kind of love, but you want them to know that mom is first, and that you've got her back, and she has your back, and you grow together.
Yeah.
And I think that's such a model that our kids need to see. I see my son, because boy, I didn't do everything right, but I guess I did enough, because he is an amazing husband. I mean, he loves his wife well, and I'm so grateful
Well,
for that. And and then seeing his boys, who are now getting older, um, they treat the girls they date with such respect, and I just think, wow, that is so good. And it started with my dad. My dad was a great husband, and I saw that, and I knew how much, all the things you said about um, a husband loving his wife. I saw my dad do that, and so I think, just encourage guys that whether you had it or not, you can start it now, and it's going to make a difference in the ones in your home, and then when they go out, what do they do? And I think if we all take that seriously, just think what a generation from now we could have out there.
I agree. And just to really nail that, right? So many men are like, what's my legacy going to be? Like, what's my
Yeah,
legacy, right? Your legacy could be exactly what you just described with your son, which I love that term. He loves his wife well,
yeah,
right? I mean, when I think of that word, right? I love the word well because it's not dysfunctional. Like, I also look at the word well as like effective. I
mm,
also look at the word well as in like job well done, knowing how to
yeah,
do this job, right? And I love that term, Dr. Kim, is like, love her well, right? You can
yeah,
love her a lot, you can love her
yeah,
intensely, but do you love her well? Loving her
yeah.
well is different than loving just someone, erratically or just intensely, but not knowing exactly what to do. So
Ec-
for men out there who are scratching their head being like, what kind of legacy can I leave behind? It's exactly what you just said, because your son, he got to learn from you, right? And he got to learn, like, how do I love a wife well? Well, guess what? Now his sons, that's the legacy, is
Yeah,
those boys now get to see your young man live or love their mom well, which the chances of those young men, and if they have daughters, to go create an incredible relationship, their chances are now amplified to be better. So you talk about a powerful legacy. Like, yeah, we can give, stacks of cash and possessions and all that, but what is really effective in our lives, and what do people talk about at funerals? It's not the car you drove or how much money you have in your
no,
bank account or how much time you spent in the office. It's how did you impact someone else? How did you love them
absolutely.
well, right? That's a legacy, man.
Yeah. Um, Thank you. I mean, yeah, I never really thought of it that way, but I think there is such a difference in that word "well," and that's what really comes to my mind, because my son's not perfect. they've struggled, all that kind of stuff, but they persevere through it and continue to fight for it. And now after, I think I celebrate their 25th anniversary this summer, it is going to be like, wow.
Wait, your son has been married for 25 years?
25 years.
What?
Wow.
That's crazy.
It is crazy. It is crazy.
That's awesome. A quarter of a century. Come on. I mean, that's,
yeah. And
you know, he's doing it well if it's been that long and things are good.
And it is so much fun for guys out there. When you get to that point, it's just a real blessing that God lets you see that. You know, and then that His truths are true. You raise up that child in the way he should go, and they may struggle a little bit, or they may waver a little bit, but eventually, I think they come back to it, and that it's pretty good.
It is, yeah.
So if a guy's sitting out there and he's saying, "Man, I'm not loving my wife well," how can he course correct?
Get divorced. That's usually the first step. Just file for divorce, or just retreat and just stonewall and don't deal with it, or gaslight her. Make her upset, stuff like that. Or just be like, well, or you could just point back to your childhood and be like, well, this is how I grew up, so this is all I know. Kidding, obviously.
No, but I think I've heard almost all of those.
Right. I think we all have. I think it's really just knowing, like, I don't know about you, Kim, but when I was really trying to figure out, like, I've been married for 23 years now, and when I first got married in the first 10 years, I just felt like, in a way that almost every day or every week sort of felt like the first day of school. It was almost like I didn't really expect that, or like like suddenly, like, so for instance, I didn't really understand the dynamics of even like triggering like resentment here and there, right? So like, I'll give you an example. Can I talk about sex on this show for a second?
Yeah.
High level? Okay. So, okay. So let's just talk about, I think, the number one thing that men kind of react to, and they're just like, hey, and men, listen, we need to feel appreciated, respected, and we need physical affection. That's just how a man is wired. That's not everything, right? But that is one way, one powerful way we do feel love, right? And it doesn't necessarily come from the physical release of sex. It comes from like the connection, knowing that you're desired, knowing that you're wanted. That is so much for a man. Just like, hey, at the end of the day, am I desired? Am I wanted? And if so, like, and during that time, are we ultimately connected, right? If you ask most guys, like, we're kind of put in this box of stereotype of like, well, a guy just wants one thing. He just wants that physical release. Man, that is not true. That is not true. Like, and I just want to debunk that stereotype, because if you really ask a man, like, hey, why do you want to be physically intimate with your wife? It's usually because, like, I want to feel connected to her. I love her. Like, I feel insanely connected to her when we do that. And then not only that, but like when I feel desired and when I feel wanted, there's no better feeling on the planet than being desired and wanted by my wife. So yeah, I want to debunk that stereotype. But like, so for instance, sex, right? Sex was a very triggering topic in my relationship. But the thing was this, I always, I laugh at this now, but I'm like, oh, I'm married. So that means like, I can have it anytime I want. Right.
Yeah.
And then I would pursue my wife physically. And then when she wasn't in the mood, I would take that as a rejection. I'd get my feelings hurt. And then I would stonewall and pout, like basically like, okay, that's fine. I guess we don't have to tonight. And then it came from ego of like, well, she doesn't want me. So, okay, fine, whatever. Like, and then you get resentful, right? But here's the thing. Here's what I didn't realize. I wasn't really listening that well to my wife when we would talk. And what I mean by that is I would listen for words. So I'm like, oh, I'm listening to her words. But true connection happens when you validate someone's emotional feelings, right? Or when you get really, really deep with that emotional connection of what are we feeling right now together? What is this connection? Not the conversation and the words, but what is this connection all about? And one thing that I realized early on is I was starving my wife on emotional connection. But yet I wanted sex. So what it felt like for her was like, my greatest need is to connect with you outside the bedroom. And then therefore I feel really, really great about connecting with you inside the bedroom. Your greatest need is the opposite. And once I realized that, I was like, so wait a second. So if I really connect with my wife, not only is that like oxygen in her lungs, but it's also oxygen in mine, because when she feels insanely connected to me, and then she desires and wants me, well, that makes the sexual intimacy that much easier and better. But I didn't realize that. So what I think a lot of men do is we don't understand the dynamics of what does my wife actually really need,
Mm-hmm.
right? And what do I need? And how do we bring these two worlds together and communicate those needs and know how to love each other well, right? Love each
Yeah,
other
that's so
well, not just intensely or selfishly, but well. And that's loving someone well.
yeah, that's so good. I think it was I think it was Kevin Lehman where I first heard it said it. What really counts is what you do the other 23 and a half hours of the day, not the 30 minutes and you're in the bedroom. And it's true, just what you said, pursuing her, loving her, understanding her emotions, all those kind of things that connect us. And from my perspective, when we do that and our wives respond, the sex doesn't get any better than that.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, I think sex is nothing more. Now, I didn't realize this then. I used to view sex as like, sex is the thing that we celebrate, like knowing that we're doing good,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
I haven't believed that for a long time. I think sex is the actual incredible result of an incredible connection outside the bedroom.
Mm-hmm.
That's what and it's a totally different experience. And by the way, just to kind of mess with you a little bit, it's good to know that for you, it's 23 and a half hours out of the day, because for me, it's more like 23 hours and 58 minutes. Because when you have four boys that are just like knocking at your door constantly, it's like, all right, quickly, let's go.
Yeah, exactly. I remember my pastor saying years ago when these kids were little that they had it down to a Barney tape. In other words, that when we
Oh
had
my.
cassette tape, put the Barney tape in, and we go. And I thought that is so true for
Oh
those
my
years.
gosh. Yeah,
Yeah,
dude. Oh my
so
gosh.
true
That's
for those
great.
years.
That's
Yeah,
great.
exactly. And I think one thing that you said too, I think the other thing where guys sometimes, if our wives will have sex with us, we think we're doing okay.
Right.
But if you're not feeling that emotional connection from her, there's more. There's more
There's
that
more. Yeah.
could be that. Yeah, it's a huge difference in that than when she's doing out of duty or whatever goes through her mind, or just to get you off her back for a while.
Yeah.
That kind of sex is sex, but it's not the kind of intimate relationship and sex relation that God designed for us.
I agree. And I'll tell you, I think, I don't have to tell you this, but I think when we're loving each other well, I'm totally stealing this term. I just love that term, Dr. Kim. When we're
You
loving
can
each other,
have it. I'm sure I got it from somebody
I love it.
sometime.
When we're loving each other well, like I know exactly how to love her in the way that she receives, and she
Yeah.
knows how to love me in the way that I receive. When we love each other well, then sex becomes, it doesn't necessarily become a pursuit. It becomes, we're attracting her in. We're actually attracting our wives into us, right?
Mhm.
Versus like, I just have to go chase her because I want to love her and I want this thing. When we're doing the right things and we're loving each other well, you don't have to chase.
Yeah.
You can attract, which I think is way more fun to attract than it is to chase. It's not the most wonderful thing in the world to chase, but attraction, that's something very, very different. And
Mhm.
when men learn the skills of attraction and connection and loving each other well, sex becomes a totally, I think, different experience for both of us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
So well said. And it's just, if the guys are listening, just work on that. Just get there. If you just, ask her, what can I do today to make your life better? What can I do today to serve you? How can I help you? Google it. Something. We got all kinds of resources, but the best resource is her. And then follow through with it. And she's not going to say, well, you did it because I told you so. Well, she might at first, but when you continue to do it and she sees your heart in it, it's going to change things.
Yeah. I
It,
totally
it,
agree with that.
it will definitely change things. So many things I want to talk about. Yeah, let's talk about this. In our culture, there's so much of the me thing, individual, do things for yourself, all the directions. So when we get down to the spiritual part of leadership, being intentional about that, leading our families with that, being a spiritual leader, how do we? What's the first step for a guy? Because I think Every wife wants their husband to be a spiritual leader. And I think the majority of guys, and including myself, Nancy is more spiritual than I am. She's been to more Bible studies than I've been in. She's, as a woman, she's in groups that talk about, not about football or not about, they're talking about life and how to be a better wife or mother and those kind of things. So where does a guy go?
So I think a guy, it's harder.
It is
It's
to be
harder
a
for a
spiritual
guy,
leader.
number
Yeah.
one. So I think as long as you know that going into it, like I think a lot of guys are like, my wife has all these resources and I don't, and that's probably, there's probably some truth to that. But what does a leader do? A leader first will self-lead, right? We need to lead ourselves, right? And in order to do that, like maybe this might help, Dr. Kim. So I definitely view myself as the spiritual leader of my family. And I thought when I first, had that identity, or actually I should say I was scared of that identity, was I don't even know enough about this to lead. Like, how am I supposed to do this? And then I had a spiritual mentor of mine say something to me that completely changed my perspective. It's kind of like, hopefully a man heard this podcast and maybe a perspective change for him was, so wait a second, everything that I'm hearing, I don't have to know all this. And if I feel a little lost, that's actually normal. And actually the greatest next step for me is to be like, hey, I don't know how to do this. Like, let me learn it. Like, that feels really good to a guy. Like, okay, great. I'm normal and I'm going to go learn. I'm going to go take action. One of my faith-based spiritual mentors told me, because I told him, I was like, dude, I'm not equipped to lead my family. Like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I don't know enough about this topic. I don't know enough about this. Like, even my kids ask me questions, I don't know. And this good friend of mine who's ahead of me in life just by about 10 years was like, Larry, he's like, what does a leader do? I was like, well, he leads. And he's like, well, what else does he do? I was like, he empowers people. He's like, yeah, what else does a leader do? I was like, I don't know. And he looks at me, he goes, they learn. They are lifelong learners. So here is your first lesson in being a spiritual leader with your family. Step into it and tell your kids, I don't know exactly what I'm doing here. All I know is I'm going to build this relationship with God. I'm going to get into the word every day. Every Sunday, we're going to go to church and we're going to have conversations around faith. And I'm not going to know all the answers. In fact, I'll probably know minimal, but I would like to go on this journey and I would like to take you along with me of learning. Like, let's learn together. And when he said that, I was like, oh my gosh. So I learned that 5 years ago. Now, when my kids ask me questions about faith or God or Jesus or anything like that, and if I don't know, I'm just like, I don't know. Let's go figure it out. Let's go research it, right? And I get the chills even talking about that because it's so empowering and it's exciting, even for a kid to be like, if you look up at your dad and your dad says, "Son, I really don't know, but you want to go learn together?" I would love to learn. And so the kid would be like, oh, yeah, I did this with hunting with my 17-year-old. I've always told my kids, like, look, I didn't grow up learning a lot of skills. So if there's ever anything you want to do or learn, and I don't know how to do it, what I can promise you is we'll go learn it together. And that, man, that has been just such a stickiness with connection with my kids. And I think it makes us a more credible leader. Like, because if we're just bogusly telling them like, oh, this is what it is, and we don't even know ourselves, they know that. But if we're like, I don't know, let's go learn together, I think that's just tremendous for connection.
Oh, I do too. I love it. I think it's taking them on that journey with you. And even those questions, some of them you're going to have answers for, which is great, and they've got their answer. But I think when we can discover that together with them, one, it teaches them it's okay not to know everything, all the answers, and that there's a way to find the answers. And I just think that whole concept there is a great way to connect with them. And I agree. I think you did a good job of debunking. As a spiritual leader, I don't know who we compare ourselves to. None of us are Billy Graham. None of us is, we're not pastors. We're not all this kind of stuff. But it's just, I think asking God in, I think is the first thing. And then just doing the basic stuff. Read the Bible. You do a YouVersion plan. Learn about, there's so many ways to learn. And then you can share what you're learning. And they're going to see you learning. I can remember a lady that her husband just made that decision. And she said, I didn't know it's going to be real or not, but and then she said, but for 6 months, every morning when I come downstairs, he's sitting on that couch with his Bible open.
Yeah.
And what it did for him and what it did for her
Mm-hmm.
was amazing. And she didn't expect him to come out as some great Bible scholar. She just wanted to know that he was digging in God's word and that being open to what God said to him.
See, I love that.
And that's
Yeah.
spiritual leadership.
Yeah. Just
It's so
being the
much.
example of learning. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
think about that for a second. Like, even if you could just, even within the spiritual realm and outside the spiritual realm, no, that's growth mindset, right? Growth mindset
Absolutely.
is like, I don't have to have all the answers, but I'm
Yeah.
willing to learn it and go on this journey. And I think, you know, if we really take the burdens that men deal with, you know, creating a marriage that they truly want, creating that connection with their kids that they truly want, being, you know, learning the skills of leading our families. Like, we all want these things. And the cool thing is you don't have to know it all. In
Mm-hmm.
fact, one of the coolest things you can do as a leader and be like, I don't know it all, but I'm going to learn, and I'm going to share what I'm learning as I go. Like, that's what I think that's the mark of a true leader, a learning leader who shares.
Absolutely. And then you're building leaders,
Right.
which we want to impress that on our kids too. Are there any other, you know, we mentioned a couple of things, other things that daily or weekly things that you see dads can do that to kind of build that connection with their spouse and kids as that's part of one of their goals or one of the things they want to do?
Yeah, and I think my answer might not be the norm, but here's what I'll tell you: what we plan for, we can execute. What we react to, it could be whatever comes our way, right? So, I'm a huge fan of proactively planning the life that I want to live versus the life that comes at me and me reacting to it. And here's what I'll tell you. I know this sounds kind of crazy, but it works, and it works well. And I teach my clients this too. If you want to be an amazing husband and father, you know, or man, you know, whether it's the money that you make, the things that you're doing in your physical body, the things you're doing for your mental, emotional health, your spiritual health, your marriage, kids, all of these things, you got to plan for it. So every Sunday, you will find me in this office, and then right over this screen where you're at, there's a huge whiteboard. And I plan 3 missions per week in 5 categories of my life, and I plan them out accordingly, and then I implement them into my calendar. So I'll give you an example of that. Maybe, you know, my 11-year-old and I are having some distance between us, or I'm noticing some things that are happening. And instead of tacking that up of, oh, he's 11, so he's at that age, you know, it's just is what it is, and he'll come back. No. When you find me here on Sunday and that's on my mind, and I'm looking at 3 missions for my kids that I want to complete, and I'm reflecting upon the relationship I have with my 11-year-old, the thing that's coming to my mind is, that's not the connection I want. And he might be 11, but that's not an excuse. I want to create a connection with him. So what am I going to do this week to create that connection?
Yeah.
Well, I know that he loves to go hiking. Like, he loves to hike with me. So that's one of my missions. We are going to go hiking on Friday afternoon, and I'm putting it in my calendar, and I get to go up to him and I say, hey, you have plans on Friday? No, I don't. You want to go hiking at Quail Ridge? Yeah, I would love to. Awesome. Let's go for a hike and a talk. Right. And like, it's things like that I think we can proactively get in front of, because, like, think about that for a second. If we let that go, just something like that seems quote unquote normal. Right. And this is where the normal thing, like, oh, it's this or it's that, this is where we get in trouble. Like, constantly challenge the status quo, and do that every week. Reflect on these areas. So as soon as I execute that, I'm like, man, this is great. Like, I'm constantly putting those tiny little deposits into that relationship to make sure that it stays on point. I am not leaving that to chance or the fact that, oh, he's 11, he's at that age. Same thing with my marriage. If I notice, like, hey, Jessica and I are having some distance, you know, I can tell she's busy, I'm busy. Let me look at that. Man, it's been 2 weeks since we've had a date. You know what? Tomorrow, I'm going to go get her favorite chai tea latte at Starbucks, and I'm going to write how much I appreciate her on the top of the cup. I appreciate you more than anything, or something like that. Or I love you more than anything on the cup, something like that. And I'm going to set it on the counter, and then just head out the door and go to the gym. And then that way, when she comes out of the bedroom, there's her chai tea just waiting for her. Just things like that you can be
Yeah.
so strategic with and so purposeful with. Instead of life coming your way and you reacting to it or just saying, oh, this is normal. No. Flip the script on that and be like, no, what can I do to get the results that I want?
No, I love that. And I love the fact with your son and Jessica, both you knew something that they wanted, that they loved to do. You didn't try to pull them into something like, well, I'm going to, whatever it is, something that they really wouldn't care about. And so with your son, he loves hiking. Well, what better thing for that 11-year-old kid to think my dad is going to take me hiking on Friday? Oh my gosh, he's looking forward to it all week and excited about it.
Exactly.
And then it gives you that opportunity, because I love doing stuff outdoors with kids and grandkids, because you do get a lot of good conversations that can go along with that. And then I think with your wife, just yeah, that's her favorite drink, and to have that in the morning for her. I mean, that's the 24/7, 365 foreplay that I talk about a lot, because it's doing those things and being conscious of it. And there's joy in that, guys. There is a joy that comes in that when you see that kid on that hike with you. You probably didn't see her come out and get the latte, but you imagine what she did, that she probably grinned ear for ear and thought, this guy really loves me. He knows what I love. And so it's not rocket science. I think you're saying with both those things, it's being intentional and taking the time, because Sunday is kind of what I do. I kind of look forward to the week. The things I want to do, have to do, and relation stuff. Where do I put that in? Date nights, those things go on my calendar too. And then you don't look and think, oh, another week went by and I didn't do that with my kids, or I didn't have that date night with my wife. If you're proactive and intentional about it, those things happen. And I think once you get into that rhythm, sure, the enemy's not going to like it and he'll probably try to knock you off a little bit, but it becomes, the rewards become so great. You just want to keep doing it. You see things in your wife and your kids that maybe you hadn't seen before, or not consistently like you're seeing them now. And it's so good. And that's leadership. That's being a dad. That's being a husband. That's all those things rolled into one. And it's not that hard to do.
I agree. Yeah, it just takes, and I think, just to double down on what you just said, men, or I shouldn't even say men, just people in general, we like to kick around those. I need to be intentional. I need to be intentional. I think that's a great focus. How are you going to do it? And I'm like talking like tactically, how are you going to do it? And maybe my example might work for you, and maybe it won't. I don't know. Like, but what I can tell you is, that example does work for, I think, a lot of us, because when we throw together a plan of what our intentions are, and most importantly, when we're going to do it, right, then it becomes a SMART goal. And then it becomes like, it becomes something that we're excited usually to go do as well, versus like, what's lurking around the corner for me this week? Because that's how a lot of us live our lives. We're just like, let me step around this corner, and whatever gets thrown my way,
yeah,
I'm just going to react to it.
Yeah.
Right. So,
yeah. And that didn't work very long.
It doesn't. It's not very fun. It's not very fun.
Couple of things I want to talk, because a couple of things I think are really important, just that, because I get this question a lot as a dad, Christian dad. You live in a culture that there's gender identity, there's technology, there's social media influence. How do you navigate that as a dad? Because most of us, well, none of us really grew up with any of those things. Maybe part of our lives, but I think this Gen A is the only one that will ever had technology from birth to whatever. How do we do that? We can't put our head in the sand.
We can't,
because our kids are facing it every single day.
So, are you talking about like, how do we equip our kids, or how do? Yeah, how do? My view of what's going on.
How do we lead through that? How do we, and not being reactionary? Okay, you're grounded from your phone for the next 5 years, or or whatever. How do we help them deal with the things in culture that they're dealing with right now?
Well, I think if you Google just about anything and you want an answer for anything, you'll find what you're looking for. So if I want to prove that, mice are also confused about their gender, chances are I'll find some craziness on the internet that will
Yeah,
say,
you
yeah, that's
probably.
a thing. And if I want to prove
Yeah,
against it, if I Google it, I'll probably find something that's like, yeah, it's not a thing.
yeah,
So I think it's really taking a grain of salt of where are you getting your information from? If you're getting it from the internet and social media on topics like this, you're probably going to be confused.
yeah.
But, I honestly think the whole thing with genders is rooted in science and biblically. God made man and woman, period. You either have an XY chromosome or you have an XX chromosome, period. If you have the equipment that matches a man, you're a man. If you have the equipment that matches a woman, you're a woman. Now, I'm not saying that there aren't homosexuals out there. Like I get that. And there are people out there that I think are legitimately homosexual human beings, and that's fine. I mean, I have friends who are gay.
Yeah, me too.
But here's my problem with it. My problem with it is when you try to force your ideology on me to convince me that I need to address you in a certain way, because now I honestly, my belief is you're taking away my right now.
Mhm.
Right. So like if you're a man and you're forcing your she pronouns on me, well, if you want to believe that, that's fine. But I'm not going to buy into that. It's almost like if someone came up to you and said, hey, I am ruggedly handsome and I need you to address me as ruggedly handsome. And the other person might be like, well, I don't really think that you are. Like, that's my opinion of you. I don't really think you're ruggedly handsome, and that's fine. But I'm demanding that you call me ruggedly handsome. Like, I demand it. And if you don't,
Mhm.
I'm insanely offended. I think that is wrong. I think that's
Yeah,
insanely wrong. Like,
I agree.
because then you're impacting the other people and not yourself. So I think if you want to believe what you want to believe, then that's on you. But forcing people to address you or believe what is in your head, that's where I think a problem is. And the way that and the way I'm raising my boys is like, hey, listen, I've had this conversation with them. I was like, about being gay or whatever else. I'm like, if they're because they've asked, they're like, well, Dad, what if I grow up and I'm gay? I'm like, dude, I'll love you the same. I'll be concerned about your health. I was like, but I'll love you the same. Like if you're legitimately a gay person, right? But like if you're fiercely and ferociously doing what some of these shenanigans that we see online, I got a problem with that.
Yeah,
Just that's just my opinion, though.
so well said. I agree. And I think that's such a good way to approach it because I think we do get those questions. I get those questions from my grandsons, because they're trying to figure it out. And thank goodness that they do come to me sometimes with these questions because I'd lot rather them come to me than somebody else that might not give them the same kind of answer. And so I think
Oh
I
yeah,
think it for like what you're saying there with your boy, there's an opportunity there for us too, and don't be afraid of it. Um, God, I think God gives us as dads the wisdom we need for whatever our kids put in front of us, if we'll seek it and seek it from Him and the resources He gives us, and just go be confident with that. I mean, you got the Creator of the universe on your team, so you got enough. You got so much more than enough when you do that.
I agree. So well said.
Um, One kind of final thing, I mean, because we've talked about so many things, and I want guys to come where encourage. But if we got a guy that says, "Man, I am all these things you've talked about. I'm not doing well. I'm failing my marriage. I don't think I'm being the parent." Uh, what do you say to him?
I say, first of all, my first question is, well, what is your perspective of this? Is your perspective that you have to have all the answers without any knowledge that's ever been poured into you, or you go actively seeking it? I think everybody would love to have a PhD in like psychology. Let's just use that as an example. But the desire to have a PhD is not the same as going and doing the work to earn your PhD,
Yeah,
right? So people might want that title, but few are willing to work. So it's no different. So if you don't have that PhD or you're like, hey, I'm lacking in these areas, go learn. There's never been a better time to go learn these things. And to be honest, there's never been a time I think in human history where I think the rest of society is giving the stamp of approval of like, hey, yeah, if you don't know it, this is a great opportunity to go learn it. Because I think like probably you're one generation ahead of me. And then I think the way you guys kind of grew up, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, is like, oh, well, if you need to go learn it, then there's something wrong with you. Like, be a man, for crying out loud. Just be a man. Like, just,
Yeah.
and that, I don't think that advice really served the generations before us as they do now.
No, it doesn't. I used to could use the example of the Marlboro Man, but nobody knows who that is now. But it was the guy used in the commercials. But that was the epitome of a guy. He's big and strong and smokes Marlboros and rides his horse and he didn't have any problems and he's a tough guy and and so we had a lot of images like that. So yeah, it's just being who God created you to be, I guess, is what it really comes down to. And He didn't create you. He never doesn't give you the equipment you need to do what He calls you to do.
Yep. 100% agreed.
Good conversation. So good to see you. People want you. I know we've got the Dad Edge podcast, other places that they can find you.
Yeah, you can find everything that we do over at thedadedge.com. If you liked any of the things that we're talking about and you want to, you're curious about what we do in our communities, we have the Dad Edge Alliance, that's for our career guys, for guys who work 9 to 5s. And then we have what's called the Dad Edge Boardroom, which is for business owners, because business owners, quite frankly, like we're wired a little bit differently. And we have to navigate a few more things a little differently. It's not to say that a career guy doesn't, but that's one of the perks of being in the boardroom, is that we help you with your business as well, not just your marriage and with your kids and you, but your business as well. The Alliance is a great spot as well to just learn some of the basics and some of the big needle movers that are so simple to miss, but they're also so simple to learn. And when you just learn them and implement them, man, it's unbelievable. One final thing I'll say with this is that even being in community, like let's just take, our Alliance community, for example. Yes, we teach skills in there. Every single month we're teaching skills. Like, you're going to learn the skills of marriage and connection. You're going to learn how to connect with your kids, how to create more trust and better conversations and all these great things that we want to learn. But yeah, you'll get all that. But what I've seen is actually one of the biggest sighs of relief and excitement for a man is just being in the room, having conversations with other men that share the same vision they do. That's it. Yeah. And like by proxy, our life actually, just by taking that one step and that one thing of being in a room, having better conversations with men who share within your vision, it's amazing. Like the impact on your life, your mental health, your emotional health, and your relationships that has.
That's so good. So the guys that have been thinking through, I don't know who to get to do this with, there's your answer. Go to dadsedge.com. There's opportunities there to connect, get with some other guys that are doing what you want to do right now, to be a better dad, a better husband, all that kind of stuff. The resources are great. Larry, thank you.
Thank you.
Happy Father's Day to you, and thanks for joining us on this episode.
Thank you.